Good morning, people. Urban Sentinel. Just going to run a couple things by you. Pretty short video, something that I've been thinking about. Now, we all know that the current situation going on in Eastern Europe and things that are going on globally speaking are all ripple effects into our daily lives here in the United States. And this subject specifically about the food shortage, food crisis, that sort of thing, you're hearing a lot more about, not just from preppers on YouTube, but you're seeing a lot of news stories being covered in the mainstream, and they've been covering it little by little, increasing more and more as time goes on. Now, this is not about the overall effect of Russia having control of the wheat from Ukraine or China buying up large portions of grain that's part of the global food supply. It's not even about, in the United States, the food that we produce in terms of what's used for cattle and poultry and the livestock, and not even going into the avian flu that's spreading through some of the poultry areas. This is more on simple, plain and easy, the cost of food on the shelves at your grocery store, both in relation to the amount that you're getting for what you're paying and for the availability of the food. And a lot of you in the comments in previous videos have been giving input into what you do and don't see on your shelves at your local grocery stores, your big box stores, your co-ops, things like that. And in some places, different parts of the country, the volume varies. Some people see fully stocked shelves all the time, but they still notice an increase in food, or they notice a longer time period between certain types and brands coming in. Other places, it's a hit or miss. My particular area, I can go to 3 grocery stores within 3 miles of each other, and they're all part of the same chain, and they will have a completely different supply level of stock on the shelves. Even though they're all part of the same chain and they all get their products from the same warehouse, it's not a case of the supply and demand at the point of sale where one item gets sold and it gets put into the inventory to be shipped out to that location. Now it simply seems to be, for some places, not all, what they have, they sort of divvy up as best as they can based upon what area sells certain products the most compared to another store that may only be 2 miles down the road. Now, what I'm getting into is the idea of preppers as individuals. We try to build our supplies up any way we can. Many of us have the advantages of a lot of space. Some people have the advantages of having gardens, extra time to stock up supplies. Many people have the skills to make pretty much everything from top to bottom from scratch. Other people, you got to buy it as it is, pre-made in the can, ready to go, whether you're doing freeze-dried, dehydrated, what have you. Looking at co-ops, and not the public co-ops that you would go to a location, but looking at prepper co-ops, finding people that either they are preppers or they're at least, I will say, more friendly and open to the idea of prepping. Start building a co-op within a group of people that you know, family members, friends, that are reliable enough to do their part. Almost like a potluck dinner sort of thing, a potluck prepper pantry. Everyone gets certain staples that are common to the entire group, and then they bring in additional supplies. I've mentioned this probably in 1 or 2 other videos, but now more than ever, because of the varying changes in prices across certain regions, it might be a benefit that if you've got 3, 4, 5 people that still are relatively close to each other, really doesn't do any good if they're on the other end of the state and it takes you an hour and a half to 2 hours or more to get to them. And then depending upon the situation, cost of fuel and anything else, you may not be able to. You want people that are at least local enough to your area. So then when you all have your supplies and it comes to a certain point where certain things are becoming more expensive to get, or simply there's a longer wait, you can contact them directly. And it goes back to the old days of I Love Lucy, with Ethel and Lucy. Knock, knock, neighbor, need to borrow, a cup of sugar, need to borrow 2 cups of flour, and do you have 4 or 5 extra bottles of, this sauce and that sauce that I can use for this recipe? They'll have certain things, you'll have certain things, but you all agree to kind of share within that pot. It's not a case of you're going to be carrying everyone, you're going to be pulling the wagon and everyone just sits in it, because for a lot of preppers, that is part of the thorn in the thigh, the thorn in the side, as it were, where we prepare for the event that may happen. And we have friends and family that, well, why are you doing that? Nothing's going to happen. You shouldn't do that. You're just wasting your time. You're wasting your energy. That extra gallon of water, some 80-year-old lady could have sent her grandchild out to go get it. They come up with the reasons not to prep, not to prepare, because that makes them feel better. Fine. But we also know they're the same people that when something happens and they realize they're not prepared, they come knocking on our door expecting to get the free handout because your friends, your family, you mean so much to them. To avoid part of that is to form a group of at least a few people that will be in that mindset. They may not be full-on preppers. They may not have all the extra gear that they should have. They may not have everything lined up with plans and ideas about what to do when this or this happens, but they at least acknowledge, on the bare minimum, power goes out because of hurricanes or storms. A grocery store shuts down because they found out that they had received contaminated meats, so they had to shut everything down, close everything up. Whatever the case may be, it could be a small scale situation, but that small scale situation can spread through a larger area very quickly depending upon what it is. So if you have a group of people that are working together, that should, to a certain extent, level the playing field enough and keep things balanced in a short term. Now, obviously, if you have a bunch of friends and family members and associates that are all preppers and are all moving towards the same common goal, the understanding that things aren't going to be getting better immediately and that they're going to be getting worse, that makes your group a lot stronger. But this is more on the auspice of you're doing your prepping your way. They're sort of on board to a certain extent, but you're going to utilize and harness that because they may have a different situation or setup than you. Someone may have a garage attached to their house that's climate controlled. Hey, can we stock and store up some of these supplies at your location? Somebody else may have a backyard that gets great sun and they don't do much with it. It might be an older person who, they don't get out and do a lot of work, but they're willing to let you use a section for a garden. So now you have effectively a group garden at another location where you've got someone that lives there. They can keep an eye on it, but the rest of the group really maintains it and, make sure that everything gets up and running and goes right. You may have someone that has a location to keep a bug out vehicle, whether it's one vehicle or a trailer or, a camper, something that, you can't keep on your location or someone else in the group can't keep at their location, but it gives you an off-site but still close by location as a meetup. Many things that you can look at right now, and it comes down to, part of it is saving money, because money is really a factor in a lot of what preppers do, time being the other one, time being the more critical one, because with less time, even when you're working, and I've mentioned this before, you just don't have enough time to make the money, to buy the preps, to continue your plans that you need to get going forward. All in all, I personally still feel that the way things are going, as far as the economy, as far as the cost of fuel, the cost of food, everything in our daily lives, the shoelaces are still tied together, and it's just a matter of time before we stumble and fall again. Whether it's kicked off by an external force, whether it's the bird flu goes rampant and you have all the bird processing facilities shutting down and then the cost of chicken shoots through the roof, whether it's another pathogen, virus, pandemic situation, something new or something old popping up and spreading through the country and they have to shut things down, whether it's a direct action from an outside force, whether it's a cyber attack from North Korea or from Russia, whether there's a military exchange going on and resources that are available now become restricted because they have to be utilized in this military conflict. Whatever that case may be, that's still a little bit further down the road, but it's still down the road and we're still moving in that direction. So having a group, again, it's a personal choice. You hear about the mutual assistance groups and you hear about, forming up the teams, and it's still a benefit to have people as a team working together in some fashion. You don't necessarily have to be in each other's pockets 24/7, but it is a benefit to have other people as backups. You're someone's backup, someone else is your backup, and you all kind of work together in that fashion. It's not necessarily that you have to spend every waking moment together planning and communicating, but you all have an idea of what you're each going to do and how you're going to contribute, and what happens when this goes down, or what happens if this goes down, and who's responsible for this, or who's going to take the lead on that. That's pretty much where I feel a lot of preppers should be at right now. So even if you're a solo prepper, someone who's by yourself, you're watching this video and you're going, well, I live by myself, or I've got a few friends and family, but they're not really in that mindset. If you happen to be, someone who has an older parent or grandparent that has an apartment, if they don't mind, or if they've got a house and you can store a few things that are out of the way, and they're not going to really question what it is or really be concerned about it, that may be a place for you to store additional supplies. If you have friends or family that live distances away, but you can set up your own personal caches where you put certain amounts of prepping items there. It might be a small tub worth, might be one or two things that you're going to use for yourself, or they may be situations where you're leaving that stuff for them, knowing that they're not going to do it for themselves. And it may not be a lot. It may only be something that might help them out for a day or two. It might be something that they've overlooked, and ahead of time that they're going to need this, and you want to set this up for them. You can go do it. Any case, I'd say overall, the way things are right now, we're coming down to the end of April, heading into May. And between everything that's still going on overseas and all of the issues that are still building up back here, I still feel that we're heading to a point where, again, it's not necessarily going to be super dramatic, a cinematic thing when shit hits the fan. It's just going to be one of those things where when you wake up in the morning, you go, well, I guess this is the official it, when you look on the calendar, that everything at this point went downhill. So that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.